Personally, I don't see what the big deal is, dude. I mean, sure, people will tell you that cannibalism is like wrong or whatever.
Donkey! Don't eat that!
But that's just like...
Your opinion, man.
I mean, people used to burn teenage girls alive because they were like smart or something. I'm not saying that I've consumed human flesh myself, cause I think that'd be confessing to a crime. But I'm just saying I'll take people's opinions about my protein intake at face value. But I'll take that liver medium rare. So without further ado, go ahead and slice that ginger.
Wade into the quiet of the stream.
And let's get straight into it. We kick off the plot sometime before the Hannibal Lecter story that you and probably most people remember when talking about the infamous cannibal. Or should I say, the most infamous cannibal of all time. The one and only, insatiable, unmatchable Dr. Hannibal Lecter. This adaptation is very different from pretty much any other portrayal that we've seen of the Hannibal Lecter story, where he isn't the ominous side character Hannibal the Cannibal who reluctantly helps the FBI solve crimes, but rather the gentleman, the scholar, the aristocrat, Dr. Lecter. We get to see the good Lecter, the what once was Lecter. And it doesn't just set itself apart by the time period, but interestingly enough, by making Hannibal Lecter the villain of his own story, with our hero being Will Graham, a damaged and extremely intelligent FBI profiler who quite literally suffers from having a pure empathy disorder, and just like me, is
Very likely on the spectrum.
Will Graham is recruited by Jack Crawford as a profiler to use his gift, or curse, of imagination to solve crimes, catch serial killers, and feed grade A FBI information to a psychopathic mass murderer.
If the ambulance radio is on, I can use the DF sweep to find it.
Good. This is very educational.
Shortly after, Jack Crawford, played brilliantly by Martin Lawrence, seeks out Dr. Lecter's help to keep Will mentally and psychologically in check. A decision that will 100% not backfire. And thus, the game begins. This story follows a very cool detective thriller narrative that we've seen in other Lecter film adaptations, but this one, of course, with a more modern, almost Law and Order-like approach, which works tremendously well given how many layers of storytelling are present here, with the cat and mouse investigation serving as an amuse-bouche to a more general audience, given the episodic nature, with the more sinister overarching narrative serving as the real story for Hannibal the Cannibal. And one of the reasons why this formula works so well is because not only does it offer a more easygoing detective storyline, but also blends it in masterfully with the overall story. Every case Will solves, every killer he catches, every crime scene he recreates leaves a permanent scar in his psyche and very quickly begins to deteriorate his mind. Will's mental decay is very uncomfortable to watch during the first season because Hugh Dancy is in the zone. The Auto Zone. And what separates Hugh Dancy from any other performances that I've seen of Will Graham is you get the sense that he really understands the character. A socially inept weirdo who has a curse of imagination and uses it to solve the most gruesome crimes at the cost of his own sanity. He's essentially a deer in headlights whom you get the sense that no one really cares about. He's not quite stable enough for a relationship or even a real job, and even those who claim to care about him keep him at arm's length.
Loser! You're a loser!
Alana doesn't trust him on a deeper level, Jack only keeps tabs on Will because he's effective at his job, and even Hannibal only feeds into the idea of being Will's psychiatrist because of his own curiosity. Will Graham also does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to how we, the audience, perceive Hannibal. At first as an intruder, then as an anchor, a traitor, an enemy, then a friend, and ultimately a partner. Not specifically in a romantic sense, but we will talk about that a little bit later.
It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed up.
But the best part about having Hannibal Lecter as the villain in his own story is that he has no obligation to any sort of moral compass. Because I think we've all been recently reminded why turning villains into heroes is a terrible idea.
The Kravenov hit failed. All of our guys are dead.
Craven the hunter.
Allowing Hannibal Lecter to be the true antagonist gives him free range to become everything the character was always meant to be, which is an ominous spectator whose sole purpose is to craft chaos. The puppet master, if you will. They establish very quickly that absolutely nothing happens without Hannibal's approval. Whether it's warning fellow psychopaths of impending doom or leading the FBI down all sorts of false directions, it's incredibly apparent that everyone is a pawn in Hannibal's game. This is Hannibal's world. You're just living in it.
If you think you're about to catch Hannibal, that's because he wants you to think that. Don't fool yourself into thinking he's not in control of what's happening.
It's also a very special detail how Hannibal has a distinct approach to everyone in his environment. Within his own twisted games, he never plays two people the same way, because of course, no two people have the same mind. Hannibal manipulates everyone's different fears and dissects what makes them tick individually in a fascinating way. Unfortunately for himself though, he's a little too smart for his own good. Hannibal's biggest enemy throughout the show is his own ego. Even though he's shielded by his anonymity, his curiosity for Will and flirtation with the FBI lands him in bad situations where the only suspect that has any agency here is Hannibal Lecter. Another show that has also done this brilliantly well is Death Note, where the most logical suspect is the smartest guy in the room.
Actually, I'm depressed.
Depressed? What for?
Well, truthfully, all this time I thought that you were Kira, and my entire case hinged on that fact. I guess I just can't get past the fact that my deduction was wrong.
This parallels Hannibal in the sense that when you're this unbelievably intelligent and cunning and perceptive, it makes no sense for it to be anyone else.
I put Miriam in a room with Hannibal Lecter. She stated definitively he is not the Chesapeake Ripper.
That definitive enough for you?
No.
Like, of course it was Hannibal Lecter, dude! Who the f*** else is it gonna be? The walls close in under the weight of his own intellect, and the Predator himself falls prey to process of elimination. Although, the best episodes of each season, by far, were those where Hannibal managed to frame someone else for his crimes. The sheer amount of precision and meticulousness that goes into framing both Will and Chilton is staggering. I loved it. What was even more impressive is just how well acted this show is through and through. Mads Mikkelsen is a fucking testament to acting in this show and pretty much everything he does. But Hugh Dancy just sells this character, man. He doesn't ever skip a beat, doesn't ever have me doubting who this character is or just how terrified he is to look inside of himself. Will's character arc throughout the series is nothing short of some of the best acting I've seen on television. Along with Mads Mikkelsen, it was two incredible performances that complemented each other in a very succulent way. Why are you gay? Hannibal and Will, by the end of the show, have the single most beautiful relationship I have ever seen on camera.
If I saw you every day, forever, Will, I would remember this time.
Strange seeing you here in front of me. Been staring at after images of you in places you haven't been in years. I wanted to understand you before I laid eyes on you again. I needed it to be clear what I was seeing.
And while some people,
not me,
be like, up, gay. Now, of course, you are entitled to your own opinion and are free to interpret this story any way you like. But realistically speaking, I don't think this is a queer story at all.
Did you just smell me?
Difficult to avoid.
It's a connection that extends so far beyond physical constraints and transcends into a spiritual connection, which is only possible to interpret on film because of how carefully they paved the way for their bond. From denial to reluctancy to toleration to betrayal to redemption to revenge to acceptance to sincerity and ultimately mutating into true unconditional love. They're brothers, lovers, friends, and a blending of souls, all rolled into one.
I think that there is a profound connection between Will and Hannibal. Honestly, I don't think it's sexual, but I think that, Thanks, Brian. Most people have been wandering their whole lives through a world in which they have not really experienced any viable form of connection with another human being because they're two extremely unusual people. And then they meet, and it's a meet cute. It's over a little tasty morsel, a little breakfast.
Man, I could talk about their relationship for hours, but never enough to do it any justice. It's a bond that if you can look beyond what's at face value, it's truly divine and something you should experience for yourself. And the raw beauty of the relationship is mimicked in every other aspect of the show, because every facet of this series is unbelievably gorgeous. The cinematography, the score, every line of dialogue, every suit, every course, every murder is a work of art. There is never a dull moment in the entire show, and not to say that it's fast-paced or action-packed, because it's not, but it doesn't need to be. At least for the first 2 seasons, Hannibal is a blank canvas where every scene is a brushstroke, culminating in this magnificent work of art, which is the season 2 finale, Misumono, which is, hands down, the single most incredible and jaw-dropping season finale I have ever seen in any show ever. I will, in all likelihood, never see another season finale the same way, because I know it won't be this. To any writers or directors or cinematographers, whatever, myself included, take notes. This is how it's done. There's just no specific set of words that can fully envelop what the first 2 seasons of Hannibal are. It's like witnessing an orchestra, and that last episode of that second season is the perfect climax.
The sexual tension in here is electric.
Unfortunately, this is the point of no return. This is where you, as a viewer, have a critical decision to make. You can walk away and be blind, but if you stay,
I'll kill you.
After this finale, the show changes very drastically. This last season suffers from what I like to call the Ozark effect. And Ozark, if you've seen it, it's great. Or at least the first season. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. And that season finale too is a panty dropper. But after it, and for the rest of the show, it's just not the same. And every time I experience something like this, it hits me like the first time. Where a team catches lightning in a bottle and then just can't seem to figure it out again. Death Note, Ozark, Hannibal, Fast and Furious, f***ing Transformers. The series reaches a point where it's not bad. It's awful. But it's just not that good. But the thing that separates Hannibal from all these other shows and movies is Hannibal was just dealt a really shitty hand. Most, if not all, of the problems that I had with the last season have a very simple explanation. Cancellation.
Attention. We are now at DEFCON 1.
The cancer that can and will terminate any production, no matter how much the rest of us want to keep it. From the research that I could do, there wasn't a specific, one reason why Hannibal was canceled, other than your, classic corporate mumbo jumbo. The viewership just wasn't there, the ratings started to decline, XYZ, whatever. Money. Hannibal just wasn't making NBC that much money. Which may come as a surprise to no one who's ever seen anything on NBC.
Andy and Dwight are rocking the sales team. I feel very blessed.
How would you have done it if you're going to do it?
How would I have murdered you? I would have cut your throat like your father did.
Wow! Hannibal was just ahead of its time any way you slice it. And NBC was never a right fit for a show like this. It was too artsy, too complex, too gruesome, and let's face it, too intelligent for the general audience that NBC attracts. I don't necessarily see the drunk pill-popping housewives who watch Chicago Fire to be bursting at the seams about a new episode of that psychological horror with cannibals. And I really did have no idea just how devoted and how loyal the Hannibal fan base was, until I joined it, and I'm glad I did.
When Will was helping Hannibal fake escape at the end of season 3, what do you think he was kind of thinking would happen next?
Season 4.
If this show would have aired on HBO, I have no, in another timeline, I have no doubt in my mind that this would have been bigger than shows like Game of Thrones or Succession. No question. And would generally be considered one of the greatest television series to ever hit the air, joining the conversation with others like Breaking Bad or Mad Men. I can only hope that in the current age of creative bankruptcy that Hollywood is going through, a streaming service picks up the show and gives it a well-deserved new lease on life. Because the third season is a byproduct of a bad decision, not a bad production. I have a theory that when the production team heard the bad news, they pulled the biggest W out of their ass and just big dick that shit. Oh, you're gonna cancel my show? Okay, fuck it. Hannibal's going to Europe. I'm doing a Hannibal origin story. I'm killing Mason fucking Berger. Hannibal's in prison. Fuck it. Bring in the Red Dragon. Dude, they crammed like 3 or 4 seasons worth of story into one. And it wasn't even sloppy writing. It's just, this was going out in a blaze of glory. This last season was Scarface. The young Robert that thought this was just a bad season is an idiot. But the new Robert that knows better fucking commends it. If by any stroke of luck this video manages to reach Prime executive or a Max executive or any sort of streaming service, please do yourself a favor and bring Hannibal back. In conclusion, watching Hannibal for the first time is a euphoric experience that everyone should live at least once. This show is the definitive interpretation of the infamous Hannibal the Cannibal. While other renditions, such as Anthony Hopkins, has been more noteworthy in popular culture, I can confidently say that Mads Mikkelsen is the one true Dr. Lecter. If I were to recommend any rendition to someone who's never seen a Hannibal story, this would be my suggestion. Will and Hannibal have such unparalleled chemistry that leaves me stunned every time I rewatch the show. It's a culmination of excellent writing, brilliant production, and shocking performances that come in unison to give the most exquisite relationship between two characters I think I will ever see. The storytelling was engaging, the visuals were fantastic, the score was immaculate, and I honestly cannot think of a single thing I would have done differently. Though the third season was disappointing and rushed, I can forgive the faults due to the fact that it was an unlucky event outside of anyone's control, and have nothing but the utmost respect for the production team who gave it their all till their last dying breath. Despite its imperfections, a huge part of what makes this show so wonderful to experience is that the dedication and love of both cast and crew shines so bright through the screen. But a thing isn't beautiful because it lasts, and as short-lived as it was, you can really tell that everyone involved was firing on all cylinders. There really is no more praise that I can give, other than Hannibal is a masterpiece. But with that said, I think it is time for the rating. Hannibal earns a very tasty 11 out of 10.
Fate and circumstance have returned us to this moment. When the teacup shatters,
Make sure to hit that big red button underneath so you don't miss a single upload on the channel. Be sure to also check out the latest video where we can truly see just how bad a villain story can be. Follow me on social media as well so you don't miss a single upload on when new videos are coming out. Get some short form content, maybe shoot me some ideas, and we can shoot the shit together. But thank you guys so very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.